Of course, I was muted. Let's start this again. This is our first installment of Magicians Without Borders Conversations, and we'll see how it goes. We're trying out everything new for the first time, the software, the lights, the everything. So we'll see how it goes today. And we're going to start with what I should have started. It's a little scene. Here we go. Perfect. And now with me, it's the one and only Tom Verner. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, Carlos. How are you?
Good, good. A little bit stressed out with all this technology.
Me too.
Sometimes. So, Tom, this is very cool to start this new thing with Magicians Without Borders. This idea of conversations. This idea is just to have a relaxed conversation between whoever's it's on Wednesdays and try to inspire through conversations about our work. So if anybody is listening, we would love to see the comments on the Facebook Live. We're seeing some thumbs up and some hearts on it. So thank you a lot. We would love to interact through the comments so that we get used to doing this. So let me just do this. So hello, everyone. Okay, so hey, Felipe just said hello. Thank you, Felipe. So, Felipe, ¿no? Como si no pudiera hablar español. Bienvenido. Tom, so please tell everybody so a little bit about you, what you do, and what your role is here in Magicians Without Borders.
Okay. Well, I'm very happy to be here to talk with you, Carlos, about whatever it is we're going to be talking about. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe I could begin by saying my life has followed three different paths. I've been a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and a college professor, and a magician. And that went for many years in my life. And then in 2001, all three of those paths, the psychologist, the teacher, and the magician, came together when I was inspired to start Magicians Without Borders. Because Magicians Without Borders calls on the psychologist, because we work with kids who are very marginalized and have been victims of lots of trauma and difficulties and poverty and injustice in their lives. And we do teaching, we teach them. And obviously, we're teaching them magic and performing magic around the world, because our mission is to entertain, educate, and empower forgotten people, especially forgotten, marginalized children around the world. So,
okay. Yeah, go on.
So we had been talking earlier about what we call social magic. So in many ways,
what or how would you define a social magic, or what is social, or the term, social magic to you?
I think lots of magicians really don't understand what a powerful tool they have, being a magician, to actually change the world. Not just to do birthday parties or corporate shows or whatever, all of which is terrific. And we need to do those kind of things. And that brings a lot of happiness and wonder and income to magicians. It's fantastic. But there's this other aspect of magic that I think Magicians Without Borders embodies. And that is, for me, summed up in a quote that I've quoted many times from the great magician Harry Houdini, who was himself a refugee from Hungary. He fled Hungary because Jews once again were being persecuted in Hungary. And he became a magician. And he once said that when I do my magic for people in difficult situations, my magic not only amazes and amuses, but it awakens hope that the impossible is possible. So my idea of social magic is that the folks we perform for around the world in refugee camps and orphanages and in very poor neighborhoods like Ciudad Bolivar in your city, Bogota in Colombia, those people, they feel their lives aren't going anywhere necessarily. They don't see a lot of possibility for the future. And somehow learning magic, learning to do the impossible, it awakens hope in them and dreams that they can do things with their lives that they didn't think were possible. So that's my idea of what we're doing with what we call social magic.
Awesome. Very, very great.
What do you think social magic is?
Yeah, I think, well, of course, the basis of it, it's exactly the same as you. I love that quote that you just said of Harry Houdini and how you, when you, I think that social magic is trying to make reality what we dream of or perform as magic. So like to actually do, make the impossible become possible in an impossible quote unquote situation. And for me, social magic is using that tool, that power that magicians have to turn somebody's day around like this with a performance, or inspire their dreams. But to do that in places where magic is it's not only not accessible but not permitted in some way, like you're not allowed to feel awe, or you're not allowed to dream, or you're not supposed to, because you feel oppressed, you feel marginalized, you feel I think that's the essence of social magic, is bringing magic to somewhere that can use all the input that magic can give them. And of course, we've seen it in multiple places, in multiple locations. And for me, social magic is it's also trying to broaden the power that magic has, right? Trying to use it for more inspiration and for creating more possibilities. That's why I love what Magicians Without Borders purpose is, which is using magic to create a just world full of possibility in communities around the world. I feel that magic can have that power, the power to create a just world. And we can achieve it, and we've seen it in the places that we've performed and taught at, where lives are starting to transform, and the mindset of our students are starting to change, and their communities are starting to change. So I think that's exactly what we're doing, is the embodiment of social magic. So Tom, I wanted to ask you, well, I wanted to tell you that people are starting to type in their comments, so I'm going to read some. So Felipe said hi. Tim said hi. I'm sorry if it's Tim Balabim, but I'm calling you Tim. I typed Tim. I hope that's okay. So Tim Balabim Pixie, he says, love the work you guys are doing. Do you have some people working in India at the moment? And well, we replied yes, but Tom, do you want to say something about the work we're doing in India for Tim, who also wrote that for him, social magic is also bringing a gift to those less fortunate. Magic has been for a high-class society. Vegas shows social magic brings magic and amazement to those that normally would not receive it.
Yeah.
I completely agree. So, do you want to share some? Thank you, Tim. Do you want to share something else about our work in India? Who do we have there, and maybe a story about how we got started?
I didn't completely understand what you said, Carlos. Is there someone listening or watching from India?
Yes. Well, Tom, we're live on Facebook, so people that are either fans of our page on Facebook or our friends and are seeing this live, and some of them are typing in comments about this. So Tim, who's watching this right now, he wanted to know if we have people working in India at the moment.
Yeah. Like everywhere in the world, unfortunately, at the moment, our program in India, we had two programs going. One at a program for the children of commercial sex workers called Prarana, an amazing international award-winning organization, and one in an orphanage for boys. But at the moment, those two programs are, suspended because of, the coronavirus. But that's been going there in India for the last 8 years. And it's been really, really wonderful. We collaborate with a wonderful NGO in Mumbai called Our Children. And they work with about 40 orphanages and other organizations that work with children. And we've done many, many, many performances, hundreds of performances in all parts of India. And India has a very special place in my heart because I have a daughter who's adopted from India, and her name is Mirabai. And so India obviously has a very special place for me.
Oh, great, Tom. Tim is saying that he's Australian and also runs a social clown charity based in India also. So awesome, Tim. Hope we can connect after this and we can do something together later. I wanted to ask you, Tom, for those people that are watching that may not know, how did Magicians Without Borders got started? What's the initial or the genesis of it all? I would love to hear that story from you.
Okay. In 2001, I was going to a meeting in Eastern Europe, in Poland. And through an amazing, strange, magical set of circumstances, I ended up in refugee camps in Kosovo. And it was just at the end of the Balkan War in Kosovo. And I ended up doing 15 shows over about 5-6 days there. And the very first day I was there, I was driven by some people from the UN High Commission for Refugees to a small refugee camp on the border of Macedonia and Kosovo. And it was a refugee camp for Roma people. And they're people that some people call gypsies. They don't particularly like that name. So they like being called Roma people. So I went into this camp with this man from the UN, and he said, I'm going to introduce you to someone who's going to be your guide today. Her name is Fatima. So we went over to this hut, and he had also told me Fatima knows everybody in the camp, and everybody knows Fatima. And she's only 6 years old. So I thought, whoa, this will be interesting. So we went over to her house. It was a very simple little place. And we shook on this piece of metal, corrugated metal, probably from the local garbage dump, that served as a door for her house. And we rattled on it, and she came out, and she was this beautiful little 6-year-old girl with these big, beautiful brown eyes. And she was with me all day. I was there about 3 or 4 hours, and we did I think we did 3 shows. And if I needed anything, like if I needed a table, which can be hard to find in a refugee camp, or some drinkable water, or certainly a volunteer, because Fatima knew everybody. She just got these things for me. She was just one of these really bright little kids. And she didn't speak English. I didn't speak Roma or Serbo-Croatian, but she just understood what I needed. So the end of the day came, and she was standing beside me, and there were a few Roma women there, and I was talking to them, and I said goodbye to them, and I turned to say goodbye to Fatima, and she was gone. And I turned to the Roma women. I said, where's Fatima? And they said, we thought she was with you. I said, she was. She's been with me all day. Where did she go? And I said, I don't know. So they didn't know. So I said, please say goodbye to Fatima for me. And I felt sad that I wasn't going to get to say goodbye. So I walked over to the car with my suitcase, and I looked in, and there was Fatima. She was hiding, laying flat on the floor in the back of the car. So I called the Roma women over, and they came over and they talked to Fatima, and she was a good Roma kid. She took her best shot. It didn't work, but she waved us smiling down the road. So we drive for about 15, 20 minutes, and we come to a town. We're going by a town called Shutka. And my driver said, life is really difficult in Shutka. There were so many refugees from Serbia in Kosovo at that time. And he said, it's not a refugee camp, it's a town, but it's just swollen, filled, crowded, just awful with refugees right now. Let's do some magic for the people in Shutka, he said to me. I said, okay. So we drove in, parked our car, we got out, we set up some boxes, cardboard boxes, like a table, put a cloth over top of it. I put my props on it. And within like 10 minutes, there are like 350 people. So I do the show and it goes over really well. And the show ends and everybody leaves, but a few, 4 or 5 Roma men standing beside me. And then this old Roma woman comes up to me. She has this wild head wrap and gold teeth and mirrors all over her dress. And she has in her hand a 5 Macedonian gold coin. And she drops it in my hand. And she had seen me multiply flowers and sponge balls and all kinds of things. She points to the coin. She says, "Make more money." I said, "Oh." So I took the coin, I threw it into my hand, I squeezed it, and I opened it, and there was what looked like a big chunk of gold. It was really pyrite, fool's gold, but I offered it to her. And she says, "No, no, 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 money, more money." So I take the 5 Macedonian coin, I put it in my hand, I squeeze it and open it, and there is a 50 Macedonian gold coin. It's still not a lot of money, only like 80 cents, not even a whole dollar. But she was thrilled, and I drop it in her hand. She takes it and she walks away, smiling, really happy. Instantly, 2 of those Roma men together at the same time say, "Make us visas to America." And I laughed and I looked at them and they were completely serious. They had just seen all this magic. They had just seen money multiply 10-fold right in front of their eyes. Certainly, I could do the impossible. So they thought the impossible was possible. I could reach into the air and get some visas to America, and they could realize their hopes and dreams. And I told them I didn't know that trick, but I'd work on it for the next time I came back. So we go on, we do a few more shows. And that night I'm staying, actually, I was driven back to Macedonia, to Skopje. And in Skopje, I'm staying in this tiny little apartment with this family. And I'm writing in my journal. I'm thinking, what happened today? It was, as it turns out, it was the biggest day of this part of my life, because I didn't know it, but Magicians was born that day. I thought, what happened today? And I realized something. I had been doing magic for 20, 25 years or so. And I realized almost no one I performed for that day spoke English. I didn't speak their language. They didn't speak my language. But they understood magic. So I realized magic was a universal language. Every part of the world, people understand magic. Magicians basically do 3 things. They make things appear, disappear, or change. They all understand that. But the other thing I realized was, and I thought of that quote from Harry Houdini, that when I do magic, it awakens hope that the impossible is possible. And I said, that's what I saw today. Fatima saw magic. Maybe I can escape from Momen Potok refugee camp. Those men from Shutka saw magic. Maybe we can go to America and realize our hopes and dreams. So that was when Magicians Without Borders was born, that day, because they're the two real cornerstones of Magicians Without Borders. Magic is a universal language, and it can awaken hope. So that's the story of how it began. So
I mean, that's awesome, Tom. I mean, I've heard that story so many times, and every time I hear it, it's like it's the same inspiration, it's the same emotion behind it. It's those you can identify those moments and how they shaped the future of what Magicians Without Borders is today. So thank you for sharing that, Tom. It's amazing. People in the chat are saying that that's exciting, that's beautiful, that it's amazing. I'm seeing here messages from Cami. Thank you for the messages from Camilo Dominguez, an amazing magician from Colombia that lives in Canada. Welcome. Mario Sierra just joined. He's saying hello. So yes, yeah, that story is so cool. It's so good. I love hearing it. I mean, I don't know. It's just amazing to see. So I wanted to ask you something. Do you know, or would you ever have? I have to work on my English. Would you ever have thought that Magicians Without Borders would be where it's at right now, meaning like the reach that it has had?
No, well, after I came back from that meeting that I was going to in Poland, I went back to the university where I was teaching psychology, and I couldn't get the experiences that I had doing those 15 shows and all the amazing things that happened in those refugee camps, like the two things I just told you about Fatima and those Roma men. I just kept thinking and thinking and thinking about what had happened to me. So about 3 months went by, and I went to the head of the psychology department, and I asked him, I said, I'd like to take 1 year of absence from my job, from teaching, and start this organization. I'm thinking of calling it Magicians Without Borders, after, of course, the great Nobel Prize winning organization, Doctors Without Borders. So I was planning on doing this for 1 year, and it's gone on now for almost 20 years. So it doesn't look like it's ever going to stop. So no, I never imagined it was going to grow and go the way it has. And I'm so happy it has. And I'm so happy I've met you, Carlos, who is such a gift to Magicians Without Borders. And my dream is you will take over Magicians. You out there are hearing this for the first time. This is breaking news. Carlos Lopez, I hope, will become the head of Magicians Without Borders. So now it's official.
Now it's official. Now it's out there. I would love to continue the work that you've laid out. I mean, the inspiration behind it, the passion that you work with it, how you get more people involved in it, and how inspiring it is. Of course, I'll be honored to take on that role. I'll be thrilled to continue that legacy. I mean, that I couldn't picture myself doing something different, and this would be just an honor. So thank you, Tom.
No, I hope so.
For saying that, for making it public and out into the world now.
Okay.
Great, Tom. So I wanted to ask, or to take these conversations to where we are now. Look, so we Magicians with a Border, starting with you having this aha moment when you performed in the refugee camps in Europe, and then you started doing that a lot. You did it a lot. By UN estimates, Magicians Without Borders has performed for over 1 million people in 40 countries. And through that, you started an education, what we now call education chapters. And we have them all over now. But how did that get started? Like, when was that the shift that started between just performing and then saying, hey, let's try and empower this youth by teaching?
I'm pretty sure it was 2003, January of 2003. I was in El Salvador. I had been invited there by an organization, ASOPROSAR, which is a rural health organization centered in Santa Ana. And we were asked to come. They had these preschools all over that area around Santa Ana. About 25 of them, somewhere between 20 and 25. I think there were like 23, something like that. So we went to every one of those preschools and did a magic show for those kids. And then we came back to Santa Ana. That took us about a week or so to do all those shows. And we came back to Santa Ana. And the woman who ran that NGO, ASOPROSAR, her name was Dr. Guzman. And she said, I have one more favor to ask you. We have a group of children. We call them the Barefoot Angels. How do you say it in Spanish? I think it's Ángeles Descalzos. And she called them that because they didn't have any shoes when she first met them, and they were working in the garbage dump. And she got them out of the garbage dump and their families, and they were now living in houses and going to school. And about 12 of them, happened to be 6 girls and 6 boys, were doing very, very well in school, the Ángeles Descalzos. So she said, would you, kind of as a reward for them doing so well in school, would you teach them some magic? So I said, sure. So we spent a day and I taught them about 6 tricks, and they really loved learning them, and they got up and we practiced performing them, and the day was ended. And I was just packing up my things, and one of them, Jaime Zumba, he called himself Zumba. That was his family name. If my name was Zumba, I would call myself Zumba too. A great name. Zumba said to me something that changed my life and changed the direction of Magicians Without Borders. Jaime said, when are you coming back to teach us more magic? I hadn't planned on going back. Just like I planned on doing Magicians Without Borders for 1 year. I was just going to El Salvador for that trip. I had no intentions of going back to El Salvador. So Jaime says, when are you coming back? I said, oh, no. And I thought about our schedule. It was January. I was, how about if I come back in May? He said, bueno. Good, good, good. Okay. So I went back. And I've probably now been to El Salvador. I haven't been there in a while, in a couple of years, but I've probably been there almost 30 times. We went there for 3 years, 3 times every year for at least 10 years. And we held these campamentos. We created camps where we would teach magic, art, theater, and a friend of mine who started an organization called Soccer Without Borders, he would come, and we would have a couple hours of football a day, and magic, and theater, and art, and so that's how the education started. And now,
and how did these people that went with you got in touch with you? How did that come about? Like how did people get involved in going there?
How did that get set up?
Yeah, how did they get in touch with you so that they would go with you to these campamentos? Right? Like how would that do? Were you the guy that organized everything, or did somebody come to you?
No, but if you're asking how did we organize those campamentos and how did the kids come to the campamento?
No, so the people that taught the classes, right? So how did the art teachers that went there got a hold of it? How did the guy from soccer got a hold of it? So how did the people that went to El Salvador to put on the camps get in touch with you?
It was this NGO called Asaprosar, which was a rural health organization. It had a number of programs. Its main program was rural health, especially helping people with eye diseases, but other kinds of diseases. So they had that. They had those nucleos, those preschools that we went around to and performed. And they had an after-school program near the bus depot in Santa Ana, a very poor gang, MS-13 infested, difficult area. And the kids after school, like Jaime and Peter and Maricela and all these kids who were in that group that learned magic tricks from me, they went to this place with about 40 other kids after school, and they would study there. They take care of the younger kids. They play football. They played games, and they did this there. So when we came up with the idea of going to someplace outside of Santa Ana, like the beach or a lake of Cotepeque, Lago de Cotepeque, we went there for 5 days. Asaprosar made it like a reward. Any kids in the after-school program who did really well in school, they could go to the campamento. And we had about 40 children would come to the campamento. But the core group were the magicians. But some kids came and they studied magic, but they were just learning a little bit of magic. But the core group, Peter, Maricela, Jaime, Wendy, a whole group of kids, intensive. And we brought some magicians from the United States. We brought a wonderful woman My wife came and taught art. A friend of mine, Marie Rice, came and taught acting. So does that answer the question, Carlos?
It's all the work that's behind of you saying that we went there and did a camp, right? But all the work behind it, or like before the camp, it's something that almost never gets told, right? And you never.
Yeah. There was the daughter of Dr. Guzman, Lucy. She kind of oversaw the after-school program and the part of Asa Prasar that worked with young people. And then there was a social worker named America who helped choose the children and would come out to the camp. And they were really, really wonderful, the campamentos. And they really brought the kids skill and performing abilities to do magic to a really much higher level. And the two magicians who came from the United States, a Dominican American named Devante, and another friend of his, a magician named Six, Michael Muldoon. Devante, of course, spoke fluent Spanish, and he was an amazing magician. They just help bring the level of magic education. And I think we wouldn't really have the education programs that we have around the world if it wasn't for the ways in which Devante and Six inspired me with the work we did together at the campamentos in El Salvador. Yeah.
Awesome. Great to hear those names, because, I had the pleasure of meeting them both and see what wonderful people they are, and wonderful magicians as well. They're wonderful. And the impact that experience left in them, it's something that I'm pretty sure they'll never forget. And it's a driver for what they do now.
Yeah.
And well, regarding that and what I had planned, Tim just asked exactly a question that I had planned a little bit later on, but I would love to ask it now. He says, in all of your performances, Tim would love to know, what was your most memorable moment where you made an impact on someone's life that really touched your heart? He says that he calls those moments a heart-to-heart moment, where you really connect with a huge impact. So I know there are a bunch of them. I'm trying to think of one myself, but do you have any jumps into your mind?
I think this occurs to me because I was just talking about El Salvador, and I really miss those kids. They're not kids anymore, they're young adults. But this goes back to what we said at the beginning, is that magic and learning, what I like to say, learning, practicing, and performing magic awakens dreams that the impossible is possible. So a young woman who was in that original group that I taught that day, the day that Jaime said to me, "When are you coming back?" Her name is Wendy Rodriguez and Mendez, and she worked in the marketplace, and she sold dried beans for her mother. And about 4 blocks from the marketplace was a nursing school. And the nurses had to cut through the marketplace to get to the bus stop to go home after school. after their nursing classes. And they would walk right by Wendy's little bean stall where she sold beans with her mother. And one day she said to me, she said, you know, I've always wanted to be a nurse, but of course that's impossible for me, you know. And the person who was standing next to me was a friend of mine named Marie. And she had an amazing job in New York City and made a lot of money. And she said to Wendy, she said, I'll pay for you to go to nursing school. And Wendy looked at her and it was like amazing. And so Marie set up a scholarship fund that ended up sending a number of kids to school to become cooks or computer technicians. Or Wendy went to school for 5 years and is now a geriatric nurse who works with older people, and built a house for her mother and transformed her entire, it was like a pebble was thrown into a lake and the ripples just went out and changed so many lives. Wendy becoming a nurse.
Wonderful story, Tom.
That's the first one that comes to mind. And she's still a nurse. I still hear from her. She's doing really, really well. But let me just say this. This is an amazing part of this story. That woman, Marie, who you met in New York.
Yeah, she hosted us when we went there,
Yeah, she was working for an executive search company, like placing CEOs in big banks like Lehman Brothers and Morgan Chase, all these big banks. And she was making lots and lots of money, but she hated it. She didn't like it. And her going to El Salvador and teaching those children at Campamentos acting, because she went to New York originally to be an actress, and she had some success originally, but her acting career just never really took off. So she had to take another job, at which she did really well. She loved the teaching in El Salvador so much that she, at 55 years old, went back to school and trained herself, got a master's degree in education, and took a $200,000 pay cut and became a teacher in New York. And now, instead of making $250,000, she makes $45,000 teaching children with learning disabilities and loves it. So that's another kind of way in which Magicians Without Borders changed someone's life. It's amazing. And she'll say it to this day. I talk to her every week on the phone, and she's so grateful that we invited her to teach acting at Campamento, because it changed her life. And it changed so many lives, because she took all that money she was making and set up a scholarship fund and has helped so many of our young magicians go to school. So enough. That's
fine, Tom. I mean, those stories, Tim is saying that he loved that story. That thank you for sharing it. He loved it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that what you said at the last part, that this work that we do, and we enable or we facilitate these spaces where people from different backgrounds can have even either an alternate, like a life altering experience, like Marie did, or a very deep experience that can change their outlook on life. And I think that's the two ways. It's not only the kids that are our students in our education chapters, but also our volunteers are the ones that are hit the most with all this powerful and magical transformation energy from what we do.
Yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. So, well, Tom, I think we've had a very great first talk. This conversations, I loved it. How about you, Tom? How do you found this space?
It feels it's always good to remind myself of what we were doing. Last night I did a little show. Almost all our shows were canceled this summer, but there is one place over in the mountains in New York, the Adirondack Mountains, where I still go. I've gone there a few times this summer, and last night I was telling the audience about Magicians Without Borders, and people just came up afterwards, and it's just so inspiring. And to see people inspired inspires me again. So telling these stories and remembering all these years it has been wonderful. And talking to you, of course, is wonderful. So thank you very much, Carlos, for setting this up, and hopefully people listening to us are inspired also to do whatever you do in your life to make the world a better, more just, and peaceful place. So
awesome, Tom. Yes, I think this is what this spaces are for, the inspiration. It's also when I find it that when we do this kind of work, it's very challenging and it's stressful at times, and it's financially unstable, and it's got all this challenges and roadblocks on it. That when you try to sit and remind yourself of what has passed, what you've done, it's reinvigorating. Is that a word?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good word. Yeah.
That brings back the why you do it, and you remind yourself about those stories that are very powerful, and questions like the one the teams asked. Bring back this mentality of that's why we do it, and that's why it's important.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say thank you, Tom, for this time. I hope I'll see you and hopefully everybody next week, where we will talk about something else. We would love to talk about our education chapters a little more in depth about what they are, how they develop. But we would also like to hear from you guys. What would you like us to talk about? Do you have any questions? And and see if we can address those questions or talk about something else. We are gonna have people coming to these conversations. We're gonna start with our inner circle. We're gonna start with our what we call our head local magicians of our education chapters, and then our volunteers, and we're gonna keep this going. And every time we do this, we're gonna ask you to please consider helping our work. We do this work in different parts of the world. We have education chapters in as we said, in India, in South Africa, in Costa Rica, in El Salvador, in Colombia. We have one that's been very challenging to get started in Brazil. So this work goes a long way, and we're always trying to find new people to collaborate with. and new people to inspire our work and to help us do this work in an independent manner. And that's why we ask for donations. We don't want to be tied up to anything else, but be free to do the work that we think it's valuable. And yeah, the stories have reignited my rekindled my Magicians Without Borders fire. So I hope that we keep doing this every Wednesday at this same time for about an hour. So again, thank you, Tom. Thanks everybody that was here with us. So we love doing this. So hopefully we'll see you on the next Magicians Without Borders Conversations. So Tom, it was a pleasure talking to you. See you next week.
Thank you and good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you.